Dillian Whyte is 37 today, and Lawrence Okolie. Why on earth are we only getting this Okolie now? Because in the ring, he's a lot more exciting than he used to be, and outside of the ring, we're seeing charisma. Like Lawrence Okolie when he was with 258, when he was with Eddie Hearn, and in particular when he was with Sky. Some of the fights were entertaining, some of them weren't. But he never had that charisma that you looked for in a fighter. Because, you could tell with Okolie early on in his career, they were trying to kind of make him as the mini AJ. He was a cruiserweight, AJ was a heavyweight. There was all talk about them two sparring. He was signed to 258 management, all that. And Okolie never really had that at the time, it seemed. Charisma. And AJ's not exactly, Mr. Charisma, but Okolie, everything that Sky and Eddie Hearn were doing just seemed to fall flat. Now he's just doing his own thing. And my God, the guy in the ring is looking so much better because obviously, I still can't believe he's in the 260s. Obviously, I'd say he probably naturally is a little bit lighter than that, but he's still massive. How he was making that weight is just a cruiserweight. It's just I can't fathom how he ever did it. 14 stone 4, 200 pounds. I can't fathom how he ever did it. Really, for as long as he did, it's crazy. He's fighting with a lot more freedom, it seems. He's certainly more entertaining. He's letting the big shots go. He's always been a big puncher, but now we're seeing that bit more charisma out of him. Obviously he was meant to fight last weekend. It didn't happen. I believe he pulled out. Yeah, it was Okolie pulled out. He was meant to fight Reactpor. And at the first kickoff press conference, which was, Joe Joyce was there, Dillian Whyte was there, they were all there. Okolie was the star of that press conference because it was hilarious. The Madonna references and stuff like that to Richard Reactpor. He opened himself up to those. Seriously, he really does. I don't know what that's all about, but Okolie is just coming across as just really funny, really charismatic now, and I'm liking what I'm seeing. And I seen the Instagram post, but I don't have Instagram on this particular iPhone, so I'm going to read this article from Boxing 24/7. So Dillian Whyte turns 37, and long-time rival Lawrence Okolie sarcastically wishes him a happy birthday. And the reason why they say long-term rival, right, before I just go in further, is years ago, it might have been 2018, 2019, there was talk about those two in sparring. I don't know if it was that exact year, but if you go in onto IFL and you type in Lawrence Okolie, Dillian Whyte, baby thing, there was, because Okolie was saying he bashed up Dillian Whyte in sparring, and Dillian Whyte, baby thing, actually confronted him at a show. And listen, Lawrence Okolie is a world champion boxer. He is one of the biggest punchers, probably pound for pound in boxing. Mate, Dillian Whyte is scary. He is a big, strong. You don't mess with Dillian Whyte. And you could tell Okolie looked pretty shook when Dillian Whyte. And it was just the way he just, upped in his space and just, I see what you said. You did well, but, let's be real. And Lawrence Okolie was just like, yeah, That was crazy. So there's a bit of beef there going back a long time. But it says former world title challenger and long-time contender Dillian Whyte turned 37 today, and the Londoner doesn't figure to have too much long until he walks away and retires from the sport. I'd say pretty damn soon. But one man who has never, shall we say, seen eye to eye with Dillian Whyte, Lawrence Okolie, has already taken the time to sarcastically, I can say that word so easy. When I see it there, it's like such a tongue twister. Wish Dillian Whyte both a peaceful happy birthday, brilliant, and a very happy retirement. Taking to social media, Okolie, who we now know as a heavyweight, this after having won belts at cruiserweight and bridgerweight, really did get out his poison pen. He said, and I quote, this is what he said on Instagram, "Although we've had our differences in the past, I'd like to wish Dillian Whyte a happy birthday and peaceful retirement." Okolie began seemingly respectful enough. Well, the retirement one, I think that's a bit of a knock right there. He's a great ambassador for the sport, and I can't believe Okolie said this. He's a great ambassador for the sport and proves being juiced out of your something isn't a recipe for success. It's inspiring to see him leave the sport on a high after his recent pay-per-view shows. I think that was on the Zone. Maybe it would have been pay-per-view somewhere in the world, God knows. His recent pay-per-view fights against Tete and Hammer. Hammer wasn't even broadcast anywhere. It was in Ireland, but no one had the rights to it. It wasn't even streamed. I truly believe those are the kind of shows that shape the landscape for boxing into what it is today and encourage powerhouses like Riyadh Season and TKO to enter. Oh, Lawrence, where were you 5, 6 years ago? That was brilliant. He's absolutely right, of course. Those two fights, he's obviously being sarcastic. See, I can say it's no problem there. He is obviously being sarcastic with that. We know those two fights were absolute farces. The Christian Hammer fight was just announced on a couple of weeks' notice. It happened on a Sunday in Castlebar, County Mayo, in a hotel slash. It's a hotel, but really, it's like the York Hall if you got it on Wish. That's really what it was, and it wasn't even televised live. You couldn't get it on any platform. There was no streams available. They only chucked the highlights. You had to watch it through people's flipping iPhones to get even a sense of what was going on in it. That was Dillian Whyte's comeback fight after he had been out of the ring for over a year because he obviously had the issues with Anthony. We all know what happened there with Joshua. And prior to that, he'd fought Jermaine Franklin and didn't look good in that fight. This ain't Jermaine. Yeah, it is Jermaine Franklin. That's the guy's name. He didn't look good in that fight. And then he fights then he fights Ebenezer Tete before Christmas. Ebenezer Tete, for those who don't know, is fighting next Saturday or Sunday. I think it's actually Sunday they're fighting. And he's fighting Fraser Clark. Fraser Clark, this is a rehabilitation fight, and many people are looking at this thinking, yeah, it's a good rehabilitation fight, but it's a bit of a step down. Dillian Whyte couldn't put it in this guy. This guy got knocked out in a round by Daniel Dubois nearly 6 years ago. And my God, 36, yeah. Please, do me a break. As Frank Warren would say, do me a favour. 36 years old, my something. No. So, Okolie really going in there hard in Dillian Whyte, and we obviously know that, and I should have said pause when I said that, and we obviously know Dillian Whyte, 2012, Jack 3D, he had the issues after the Rivas fight, and obviously the Joshua fight, so he is pulling no punches. Now, Dillian Whyte has said, he said with Ade last weekend, he'll be back in June. Lawrence Okolie, what are we thinking? Could he potentially be back in June? Could that be what they're building towards, looking to lay the groundwork? At the end of the day, Dillian Whyte, Lawrence Okolie, that'll sell. That's a main event fight. You could... OVO Arena. I was going to say, could you do the Copper Box? Copper Box is about a 7,000 capacity. I reckon you could do the OVO with that. Maybe not the O2, you could do the OVO up in Wembley. You probably could do that. The OVO is about 12,000. I reckon they could do that. Because I was thinking in my head, what is the next step for Dillian Whyte? Because he's talking about coming back in June. I mentioned on the show with Ade last night, could it be Hughie Fury? And to which Ade was almost insulted that I'd say, and when I think about it, that would be a awful fight. That really would be. So, yeah, I don't know what Dillian Whyte's promotional status is. He was going to fight in the Queensbury show. Maybe Warren has done a once-off deal with him that he has to see out. So he's thinking, okay, well, we didn't get the Joe Joyce fight over the line, but Lawrence Okolie, he's ready to go. Reactport, we'll just put that fight to one side. Because Dillian Whyte versus Okolie, it puts more eyes and butts on seats than Reactport in the nicest way. Because you can build that little bit of beef there. Dillian Whyte's good at selling. Okolie is starting to get quite good at selling these fights now, and he's more entertaining. So, listen, I think that in many ways, I'd like to see Okolie challenge himself. He is number 1 ranked by the WBC at heavyweight. I would like to see him challenge himself a little bit more as opposed to just going and fighting a shot to bits Dillian Whyte. But for just the pure entertainment, the build-up would be fun. Everything about it would be fun. I guarantee we'd see a knockout from Lawrence Okolie. Quite bad knockout as well. I think he would probably send Dillian Whyte into retirement. So let me know your thoughts. Okolie really going in there with Dillian Whyte. This could be interesting, lads. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, as always, if you haven't already. And until next time, people. Peace.